Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about something that is a pretty serious topic, one that Florida leads the nation in, although we all wish that we did not. So it is on drowning prevention, and Florida leads the nation in childhood drownings. And children with autism, in case you didn't know, are 160 times more likely to drown than their typically developing peers. It is a huge issue for us in our community, as it is for everyone, the devastation of losing a child to drowning. I know actually several moms who have lost kids to drowning and seen what it does to their families. And I have never met a family that has lost a child to drowning who has said, wow, I thought that maybe that could have happened to me. Nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. So I know that there's some people out there thinking, oh, I don't need to listen to this episode. I got it. I understand. My kids are fine. Well, that's lovely. But we all can be better at making sure that our kids are safe in and around water. And, you can't watch your kid every second of every day, all the time, right? So there needs to be different things that are established to keep everybody safe. And just to give you a little bit more frame of reference, the state of Florida, we know, right? We're surrounded by water. We got water everywhere except on our north end. But everywhere else, there's water. We have something like 1.6 million pools, so swimming pools in our state. That is insane, right? So there's that water everywhere. And then, of course, we have lakes, we have ponds, we have canals, we have sitting water, standing water, just like all over the place. And every one of those spaces is dangerous. Children can actually drown in 2 inches of water. So you have to be mindful, especially like if for you guys who have pools in the backyard, or your neighbor, you think, I don't have a pool. I don't know what she's talking about. But your neighbor has a pool. Our kids, they're not picky about whose pool it is. They have no issue going in somebody else's swimming pool. And they might not even know that person. But they got a cool pool in the backyard and it's hot. And that's all shimmery and looks really neat. And yesterday I heard some kids laughing in that water. And I want to go check it out. So you got to know some of this stuff so that hopefully you can get ahead of it. Last year in Florida, we lost 93 children to drowning. The year before, 99. And this year, so far, we're halfway through the year and we're halfway to that number again. So we need to be really mindful and know that it can happen to anyone and that it is silent. Do not be fooled by movies and TV shows when they show you somebody drowning and they're making noise and they're splashing and they're screaming for help, because most of the time that is not at all what drowning looks like. Drowning is somebody slowly slipping or sometimes quickly slipping under the water and unable to get their head above. That's what drowning looks like. And so if you are a parent and let's say the kids are in the pool, and maybe it's a kiddie pool in the backyard, and you're going to go in and you're going to get lunch, and you think, oh, I'm going to hear them. So I'll hear if they're crying or they're fussing or they're screaming, and then I'll be able to get back out there. Don't do that. And wandering in autism, we know, there's some research that says that 48% of children with autism wander. I don't know any parent of a child with autism who has not had that moment when their child wandered away and you turn and they're not there. So I don't know where the 48% comes from, because I think it might be 98, but not 48, but that is the statistic. And when we look at the reporting mechanism in Florida that we use is the Department of Children and Families. So they're the ones who keep all the data. And when you look at, everybody can go onto the website and you can take a look at the description of how the children drown. And almost all of them will say child wandered away from safety. that got out of the home. And while we know from the research that's been done that children with autism drown 160 times more, usually between 60 and 70% of all children who drown are 3 years old and younger. And the Center for Disease Control tells us the average age of diagnosis of autism in this country is still 4.5, which is amazing to me because we know physicians who kind of know what they're looking at can capture it much sooner than that. But be that as it may, our age of diagnosis is still on average 4.5. So how many of those kids 3 and younger would have later been diagnosed with autism? That is something, of course, that we will never know. But we can assume that because the child wandered away from safety, that they would, many of them would have been later diagnosed with autism. So we need to be really mindful about having the information that we need. So first thing I'm going to talk about is, and it's called layers of protection. So there's different layers of protection, and we call them layers of protection because one is not enough. You need layers, right? So you're not going to count on, like I said before, supervision is one of those, right? Supervision. So we're going to supervise our kids. There's something called being a water watcher. So if there's a party, and let's say there's a whole bunch of people outside, and there's kids in the pool, there's adults around the body of water, so if it's a pool or it could be a lake, there needs to be somebody who's a designated water watcher. Not somebody who's walking around with a drink in their hand or sitting on a lounge chair looking at their phone. That person's not watching the water. They're not watching the kids. So making sure that there is a person. The Autism Society of Florida has these tags that we ask people to wear. So when you put the tag on, you are the water watcher. And maybe you're only the water watcher for 15 minutes because we want you to be actually watching the water. And then you're going to give the tag to somebody else, and then they're going to watch for 15 minutes so that nobody, gives up their social time to watch the kids in the pool or the adults in the pool, because anything can happen. The other thing that we know is that 35%, probably a little bit more than that, of people with autism also have seizures. If a seizure happens in the water and nobody is watching, it will be tragic. As a mom of a son who has seizures and a son who loves the water, it is a huge dilemma in my home because he wants to be in the water, but yet it can literally kill him at any second, and it has nothing to do with his ability to swim. But I have to have my eyes on him every second, or somebody does, just in case something happens. So you want to be that designated water watch. You want to have one to make sure. And again, you can't keep your eyes on your kid all the time. Pool. And if your kid is young, you want to be like an arm's length, right? You don't want to have them at the opposite end of the pool and you're at the other end, if they're little. Now, certainly as kids get older, you want to give them more freedom and they know how to swim. But if you've got a kid who's really not proficient swimming, you should be like right there. You got to be right on top of them. So don't be sitting up in the chair. You need to be like in the water. We want to make sure that kids have swimming lessons. A lot of if you have health insurance, most health insurances actually cover swimming lessons. So we just want to make sure that you know that there are supports that are out there so that you can get swimming lessons. You do not want to wait. When you are not in the pool, so let's say you have a pool and everybody was having fun and everybody's out. If there were toys, so beach balls, floaties in the water, get them out. Because you don't want your kid to think, oh, look, the ball's in the pool. And they go to reach for the ball, they fall in the water, you don't hear it, and then a tragedy happens. You want to model safe behavior. We walk on the pool deck. These are some of the behaviors that we have when we're at the pool. We stay by the side, we stay at the shallow end, kind of the rules. If you need to, have those rules written out so that everybody understands. You can also have a timer on the side of the pool so that everybody knows this is when we're getting in, this is when we're getting out. And that can be the same for a lake or any other type of body of water. You want to have a safety plan. And I encourage everybody out there, and this might sound kind of, scary or I don't know, but learn CPR because bad things can happen. And it might not be somebody in your family. Maybe you are, at a pool, a community pool, or at a water park, or any type of kind of venue where there's water and somebody else is struggling, you want to know CPR. And so many first responders tell us that it was the CPR being given that saved a person's life. Because even when you call 911, it's never going to be immediate like you need it to be. And somebody on site needs to know, what do I need to do? When I went through the CPR, I got CPR certified, and the thing that they tell you to do, so when there is something that happens, so if, say, the person drowned, the first thing you do is call 911. Then you begin CPR. So you want to make sure that you put that call in so that you have them on the way. If you don't have your phone, then you're going to yell to somebody else to call 911. Scream as loud as you can. If you're in your backyard and you need to start CPR, scream as loud as you can. But you want to have somebody call 911 to get that started. Alarms on doors. So if you have a home, particularly has sliding glass doors, and some sliding glass doors are really quiet and they slide super easy. You want to make sure there's an alarm, and not one of those nice little cute alarms like the beep beep, and then after the door's open, that's it. It just did like a little beep as the door opened. That's not a door alarm. That's just somebody opened the door kind of beep. You want to make sure that no matter where you are in the house, so go to the far reaches of your house from that door. So you've installed the door alarm. You go as far from the door as you can get. Have somebody open that door and see if you hear that alarm. Because you want to be able to hear that alarm, and you want the alarm to stay buzzing as long as that door, after it's been triggered. And then that's a layer. And then if there is a pool in the backyard, so I would encourage you to have the alarms on doors, no matter if you have a pool in your house or you don't. Because again, we have 1.6 million pools in Florida, so chances are good that somewhere close by, somebody does have a pool. It might be an above ground pool, might be a below ground pool. It doesn't matter. They're all dangerous. So making sure that you have the alarms on the doors. If you do have a pool, you want to make sure that you have a gate, the fencing around it, that the gate on it works and it actually latches and it's self-closing, and also that it opens out. You don't want little hands to come on the door and push on the door and the door opens out into the pool area or into the lake area, or whatever you might have in your yard. So making sure that is in place. And then, of course, you want to be mindful of not only making sure that your kids know how to swim, but also that they know how to be saved. So after they're a swimmer, and when I say swimmer, I do not mean a kid who floats around on those nice little water wings, which are very unsafe. Because if a kid thinks that they can float around because they got these little water wings on, when they don't have the water wings on, they may still think that they're going to float. Floating is not swimming. It's just floating. They are not Coast Guard approved, and you just really need to be mindful of those things. But when your child can swim, so they've gone through lessons, you feel pretty good about them in the water, you want to teach them how to grab onto, say, because if they're struggling, you're going to throw a float out into the water. You want them to be able to grab onto the float in the water, because sometimes, we get winded when we're in the water. We run out of energy. We want them to know how to grab onto the float or grab onto a hook to be able to get safe. Because what if the person at the side of the pool is somebody who doesn't know how to swim? If that is true, then they're going to throw your kid something so that they can grab onto. But how are they going to know to grab onto that if they've never been taught that that's what they need to do? That's the expected behavior, if you will, is to grab onto that float to be pulled out of the water. Okay? All right, so I hope that this is good and valuable information, and it didn't figure out too much, but drowning is significant in people who have, in all children. Like I said, Florida is the number one in the nation. And we also have the most pools, by the way, and most drowning. Actually, they say between 70 and 80% of the drowning of children happens in the backyard, in the pool. They may be visiting a relative. They may be staying at an Airbnb. So if you are a traveler and you're staying in somebody else's home, whether it's a relative's home or if it's an Airbnb home, you want to make sure that you understand that there's water out there and how to keep your kids safe when there is water. Okay? All right, so I hope that you guys will kind of take some of this information and implement it within your lives. Be a water watcher. Have fun in the pool too. You know, pools are fun. They're really cool places, but you want to make sure that your kids are safe. All right? So have a fabulous summer. We will see you again soon.